Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my very first video of 2023. I'm super psyched. This month is going to be busy, I can tell you that much. I've got more heavy gear stuff. I mean, after the reception of the last video, of course I'm going to do some more heavy gear stuff. I mean, you see the numbers on that? Holy shit. I got MechWarrior Mondays coming back, and I got this baby right here I got for Christmas from my lovely wife Alicia. This is The Tower of the Elephant. This is a big-ass book. If I compare it to my usual Conan fare from the moment, the Glen adaptations, you can see the difference. Way bigger. This is a full-on art book. In fact, it's closer actually to the original definition of a graphic novel as opposed to a bande dessinée or comic book here. What this is being done by Valentin Sécher for Bragelonne Éditions, not Glénat. It's a different company entirely. And this is a full-on art book for the story, The Tower of the Elephant, by Robert E. Howard. Now, I'm going to be showing you the pages a little bit from like this instead of just my usual way, because there's really not that much spoiler material available online. People have been very good about not sharing the actual paintings in here, and I can see why, because holy shit, this is worth buying. I could say that right away. If you're the kind of person who likes fantasy artwork and prefers it in a nice hardbound book, this is definitely going to be something you're going to want to invest in. This makes a really good coffee table book, I'll tell you that. Anyway, some quick background. The illustrator here is Valentin Sécher. He has done a number of work in the past, primarily on two series. He did 4 albums for a follow-up series to La Case des Métabarons by Jodorowsky called Métabaron, obviously. And he also did an entire series called Cal, Chronique d'un Empereur Galactique, Chronicles of a Galactic Emperor, for which he won the Saint-Michel Award in 2011, so that's pretty good. And more closer to what we're currently discussing, he's also the guy who did the art for The Hour of the Dragon, that particular album in the Glénat adaptations, along with Julien Blondel on the text for that. I will get to it. It's my own stupid fault for actually, deciding to do all the releases of that particular series in order of release, as opposed to whichever one happens to catch my interest at the time. So, sorry about that. But I am going to get back to them. I got the one I showed off there to compare this Red Nails. That's the next one on the list. But it depends how much time I have to do these things. But suffice to say, he has some experience with Conan. This one is really, really good. I just love just looking at this, man. Anyway, the text itself is translated by Patrice Louinet, who is also involved in the Glénat adaptations. Him and a guy named Jean-David Morvan are in charge of the entire project, and he also did the script for Rogues in the House, that particular issue. This case, he's also done the French translations of pretty much all of Howard's text for France distribution. So yeah, the guy knows his Conan in and out. And honestly, the text here is pitch perfect. There is absolutely nothing negative I can say about the translation. It's just perfect in terms, like, if you wanted to read Howard's work in French for whatever reason, his translations are definitely the ones to beat. Let's just leave it at that. But ultimately, we're not really here for the text, great as it is. I mean, it is Howard. We're here for the art, and the art is splendid. These are 25 oil paintings by Valentin Sécher. No digital work, no touch-ups, no digital coloring, unlike, in the Hour of the Dragon, where he did the inks and then, digital coloring afterwards. These are 25 hand-painted double-page illustrations. This is beautiful work. Like, here's just the very first one here. You see here the mall in Zamora, the thieves' quarter, as it were. And just the texture and the detail on everything, deep shadows, the warmth of the torchlights and the fires coming from the inn there. You really get the feeling, and these figures in shadow up to no good. You can see that this guy has a sword here. So it's definitely like near to wells and such. And each one illustrating a different part of the text. So here we have Conan being taunted by one of the locals, who's, saying that when Conan first hears about the Tower of the Elephant and the fabled heart of the elephant jewel that the evil sorcerer priest Yara keeps inside. And this guy is just like, you don't have the galls, you're just some barbarian schmuck, and, well, it doesn't go well for him, as you can imagine. And, like, you can just feel the pain on this guy. You can tell this hurt. It's like, you can really feel... The closest I could see in terms of modern artists for the work that's done here. Something like, the cover work by Alex Ross, or his work on, Kingdom Come and those kinds of comics. It's that level of both texture brought on by detail. All the detail is there, but it doesn't go overboard. It's very much that painterly feel to it that creates that texture that really, really sells what's happening there. And then, of course, you have Conan stripped down to his loincloth as he goes on into the night to infiltrate the tower. I won't show all of these. I just, because I want to, leave something for the imagination. But like this great spread here of showing off both the tower and the city of Zamora all around it. And you really get the scale of just how big this thing is. This silver tower encrusted with gems, which you can kind of see like you're right here along the top especially. And the way that it just sits there completely separate from the rest of the city. Almost like the rest of the city is, depicted very well, but it's also like slightly unreal almost in comparison to this thing. Since it's in the foreground here, everything else is slightly, just a little bit more blurry as it goes off here into the fog. And this thing just standing out there like it's a statement. It's like, yeah, I may not be the king, but I'm in charge here. Yeah, this is definitely a Yara kind of statement. And of course, when the man himself is described, you get a nice, great picture of this guy. I mean, look at that. Look at the lines on his face. That's just the look on his face just screams, yeah, I am an evil bastard. And I'm not afraid to show it, to say it. Like, damn, that is good. Of course, we then go on his first meeting here with, what was his name here? With the fellow thief he encounters in the gardens as he just jumps the wall here. That initial meeting. And then finally they start, getting along a bit more, discussing things. Yeah, Towers of Nemedia. And then we go over him going over his plans and them infiltrating the gardens. Conan getting into a fight with one of Yara's unnaturally silent guard lions. Yeah, great stuff. The actual climbing of the tower itself, that is always really, really great. And here you really get the sense of those gems sparkling there at the top as these two thieves just dwarfed by the sheer size of it. And the sky, the clouds coming out of everything. It's just great. And then, of course, for spoilers for those who haven't read the story, which was written in the 1920s. Come on, people. Get with the program, It's about time you start reading this stuff. But Towers dies. And here you get a real sense of not just like the talent that Valentin Sécher has, but also his sense of pacing for what to illustrate, especially for these particular moments. You have this one part here. Conan has found Towers, and he's dead. Drool, froth on his lips, and tiny little holes along his neck, if you can see that just right there. Yeah. So he knows something's up. He doesn't know exactly what. He thinks maybe like poisoned darts or something like that. So he continues on, and he's in the top of the tower here. The treasures that Yara's accumulated over time, the more mundane treasures at the very least, now accumulate all around him, chests. And there's just the hint. Right over here. Of what killed Towers. So you just see a little bit of spiderweb and a couple of legs. That's all you need to know that something really, really bad is coming. And of course then, the actual beast itself arrives. And it's a nasty-ass creature. Which Conan, of course, dispatches, as is his style, by tossing a heavy treasure chest full of treasure to squash the thing. Oh, that is a great image right there. And the best part is the text itself is placed in such a way that it doesn't get in the way of the artwork, There's, like here it's placed like in the corner, or here along the bottom, the previous pages. And it never blocks the view of anything important or anything like that. So the placement of text and the placement of images is very well done here. So that's also very important. We finally get to the pinnacle of the story, really, the encounter between Conan and this alien being, the creature Yag-kosha, Yeah, Yag-kosha, or Yoga of Yag is his real name. That's something we can bring up here, because while there isn't much to say about the text in this book as such, there's a lot to say about the text itself and about the story. You really get this great view of this creature here. Like, real up close, as, lays its trunk on his on Conan's shoulder, just, comforting in that, and you see those blind eyes with tears in them, if you look closely there. Yeah, this is a creature that has suffered immensely. You can see the scars on his trunk as from the tortures that Yara's put him through. And then he starts telling his story. And here's something that I really enjoy about this, that I read in an interview that he did with a magazine in France. When you're doing something like a comic book, there are certain adaptations you can do with the text that allow certain adaptations to be done again with the art. Such as, if you're going to do certain descriptions that's not going to be, directly written, then you can do some things with the art, maybe, fudge a few things or add your own particular interpretations to that. But when the text is right there on the page, as it is here, that limits you what you can actually depict. Except until this point. At this point, here you have Yoga describing his trek from his home planet to how he arrived on Earth after his exile, how he basically mingled with the local population, was worshipped as a god by the people of the Kitai jungles, and how he encountered Yara and how he was tricked and trapped by him, who used his powers for evil. But here, instead of, as is often sometimes depicted, especially in the the older comics, where it's depicted literally on the page when he says that he flew on on great wings across the vast distances to Earth. Here we get a full-on starship departing Yag for parts unknown, and that is a great-looking spaceship. I mean, come on, that is great-looking. But it also brings to mind something I always liked about Tower of the Elephant. There's a degree of interpretation you can do. Is Yoga being completely literal with what he's describing, or is he translating his experience to a person who has no conception of what sci-fi is, or space travel, or aliens, or anything like that, and when he's describing himself flying across the ether space, is he actually flying, or is he actually just putting in the coordinates for a starship and just going to warp speed? You know what I mean? That stuff is really, really cool. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I also kind of prefer depictions. I mentioned this when I did an interview with Morton Bratton of the World of Xoth guy. How I prefer kind of depictions of Yoga in such a way that he doesn't look quite as just like, a guy with an elephant head, and more like something closer to like a space jockey from Alien. The proper space jockey, none of this Prometheus shit, Because then you kind of also get that impression, because Conan is described as looking at it and seeing him as a man with a head of an elephant, but he's never actually seen an elephant, as is described here. It looks like an elephant to him, but it looks like him simply because that's kind of what he has been told an elephant looks like. So there is also that element of interpretation that can be made, although in this case it's not done, but the illustration itself looks good enough that that's not a problem at all. Yeah, seeing him chained on that. You also see him describing himself back in the day with his disciples in the jungle temples, teaching his magic and advanced technologies to the locals and trying to help them out. This is one of the few encounters that Conan has with a seemingly supernatural or unearthly being that actually is not only not dangerous to him, but also heroic in its attempts to help people, and has been betrayed by one of the people that it thought it could trust. So yeah, this is very much like a very tragic story for this character, but he gets his revenge in the end. Don't you worry about that, with a little help from Conan. I'm gonna save the rest of it for the rest of you. Let's just, for the remaining pictures, I'm gonna save for when you buy this thing. But suffice to say, the power in these images is incredible. The talent that went into it, just the sheer detail and the choices made in what to illustrate is excellent. You see like the pacing for that action scene with the spider, very well done. The way that his that Yag-kosha's revenge upon Yara is depicted, the way that well, not poor bastard, that evil bastard finally gets his, and the look on his face as he is dragged, kicking and screaming to his fate. That is perfect, with Conan just looking on like stoically, just like, yeah, you earned this. Yeah, there's some great stuff in this thing. I would love to see more of this. If Bragelonne, the editors here, want to hire more people, or just hire this guy to do this exact same thing for more of Howard's work, I would buy them, because damn, this is really, really good. So, Tower of the Elephant, La Tour de l'Éléphant, as depicted by the art of Valentin Sécher. It was about $50 Canadian over at l'Imaginaire when I bought this. Well, yeah, I went to go get it. My wife bought it for me for Christmas. Anyway, I'd say if you're the kind of person who enjoys a good, art book, this, and also enjoys this kind of fantasy art, you're going to love this one. If you're a Howard fan, I'd say this is well worth your money. Guaranteed. And really, that's all I got to say about it. This is a very simple review. It looks really good. The translation is really, really good. And that's all you really need. It is a great art book. It's an excellent depiction of Conan. He looks like a fucking badass in this one. Even when he's just standing around listening to an alien with an elephant head talk to him. It's just, mwah. And it's this great example of one of Howard's defining stories, because this was the third story of Conan that Howard put out. The first two were The Phoenix on the Sword and then The Scarlet Citadel. And then finally, both of which were, King Conan far off into his career when he's, middle-aged in his 40s. This is Conan when he's much younger, in his early to mid-20s or something like that. This is takes place after, let's see, what was it, The God and the Bull, but that one hadn't been published at that point. And this one is very much a young Conan, and it shows very much his personality going back to a young age. He is someone who will do stuff not just for the money. He could easily make way more cash very easily instead of trying to break into a sorcerer's home turf if he just wanted the cash. No, he's doing this for the challenge because people said it couldn't be done. And he is going to prove them wrong just because he can, which is the same reason why he left Samaria in the first place. There's no, Wheel of Pain in the Howard's version of things. He just left because he was bored and decided he wanted to see the world and, face the challenges of it. And, and even throughout that, for all his barbarism and lack of familiarity with the civilized mores of the countries he finds himself in, he has that innate sense of chivalry to him. He's the kind of guy who, when faced with an injustice, will definitely think about doing something about it. He's the kind of person who sees this tortured being, even though it is definitely not human and a creature of possibly sorcery, he's going to look at this and say, no, you know what? This is wrong. I'm helping you out. Even if it means doing some pretty freaky magic stuff himself in the process. And he walks away from this story without any treasure. Like the Heart of the Elephant, the great gem that was Yara's power source, it's gone. The tower itself is gone by the end of the story. He walks away from this with nothing but his life, his sword, and the satisfaction of a job well done. And frankly, sometimes for a sword and sorcery hero, that's all you need. And also there's that great sense of, in spite that you have Yag-kosha, you have Yoga of Yag. And I see these two names because this is something that comes up interestingly enough, and it is an example of the depth of Howard's original story. Yag-kosha is the name that Yara knows this being as, and it's his title as such. Yag is the planet he comes from. Kosha could probably just be translated to exile or something like that, or, banished or something like that. Makes sense in any case, given his situation. So Yag-kosha would pretty much be like exile of Yag or something like that. His actual name, which he finally says at the end after asking Conan to help him with his revenge, to end his life and use his last gasp of life force to defeat Yara. And he calls himself Yoga of Yag. Yoga is his name. And in spite of all the torture, in spite of all the mistreatment, the threats, and the horrors that Yara has put him through, Yara doesn't know it. Yara never got him to admit what his real name was to the guy. He held out in that last bit of his own dignity, in spite of all the horrors he was put through. Yeah, Yoga of Yag, pour one out for that guy. That was a fucking badass too. Yeah. And Taurus in the media, great character in this too. And even though he doesn't last very long, but it's one of those, it's very much one of those cornerstones of the sword and sorcery genre. And to see it illustrated so beautifully in this book, that is a thing to be respected in even of itself. So yeah, Tower of the Elephant. I'm going to stop rambling about this and let you all get on with your day. Man, this is good stuff. I'm glad to be able to start the year with some really, really, really good sword and sorcery stuff. So I got more things coming out this month. I'm going to have that Heavy Gear 2 video coming out. I've got MechWarrior Mondays coming out as soon as we get Rise of Rosshog. This is going to be very, very fun. And I'm glad to have you all with me on this. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I will see you next time. Bye.